24. I've got a couple more pages. Can y'all hold on? You look like you're not going to be able to make it. Genesis 14. Y'all can stand up if you want to, move around. If your flesh is getting under control or needs to get under control, just stand up. Won't bother me none. Let's look in verse 8. And there went out, are y'all with me? Yes. Genesis. We're talking about the word Omer, Emor, Amar. Just changing the vowel points. All of it means speaking, right? We looked at the word Gomer. Look right here. And there went out the king of Sodom, and the king of Gomorrah. Same root word. Did you know if your hearing's perverted, you would be just like Sodom and Gomorrah? What was wrong with Sodom and Gomorrah? Oh, you've always been taught it was because of homosexuality that was going on. It's far more than that. And we'll look at that in a second. Then it talks about these kings that came out against Abraham and wound up taking Abraham's nephew Lot captive. One of those was the king of Admah, the king of Zeboim, the king of Bela. And of course, they fought in the valley of Sidon, which is Sidon. Look at verse 9. The individual who was leading them was one whose name was Kedor La Omer. There's that word Omer, Amar. We're in the midst of counting the Omer. It's in his name. He was the king of Elam, and it tells you that he had an individual named Tidal or Tidal, king of nations, Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elasar, 4 kings with 5. And they fought in the valley between Sodom and Gomorrah. Something regarding the Omer was what caused this battle to be fought. Let's look at these people's names. If you were to look at it in the Strong's, Kedar Leomer literally is translated as counting the sheaves or counting the omer, but let's break it down. Can we do that? First of all, you look at the he, Strong's number 3588. That's a prefix or preposition. It means because, for, that, when, whenever, indeed, if, even. And then you see the word door, ki, door. The word door in Hebrew, Strong's number 1755, is the word for generation. It means a period of time. The length of posterity, age, the time of one from one's birth to his death. Can y'all see it? Kedor la omer. La happens to be another preposition, and it means to, for, upon. And then finally you have the word omer. Of course, that word omer means a sheaf, an omer, but it can also mean to speak or to say. Now, this is an enemy of Abraham. Abraham is the first Hebrew. The word Hebrew, literally translated, means one who stands in opposition against, or one who's crossed over to the other side. So if that's the case and you're calling yourself an Hebrew, then you're going to stand in opposition to this Kedar Leomer, this individual who's personified in this name. Y'all see that? Y'all having a hard time tonight, aren't you? His name literally should be translated because, remember the word door, the word key, because, the word door, generation, la, meaning 2 or 4, omer, meaning sheaf or word. Here's what his name literally means. Because the generation is upon us for the counting of the omer, or because the generation is upon us for the counting of the word. You hear what I just said? Well, he's inferring then in this name that the generation of Emor, which is the title of this Torah portion, the speaking is now upon you and I as well. Well, aren't we quoting just almost every week Zephaniah 3, 8, and 9? In the last days I'm going to restore a pure language, a pure speaking. Well, if that's the case, this name's telling us he's a counterfeit of the Antichrist, the Anti-Messiah. And his name's inferring, yes, indeed, the generation of the speaking is upon us. And so what does he do? First thing he does, he comes in here to Sodom and Gomorrah, and he takes Lot captive. Well, what does the word Lot mean? In Hebrew, it's the word lot, and it means a covering, and it's inferring the flesh. So the first thing he does, he goes in there and takes the flesh captive. Well, what does Abraham do? Abraham goes back there and redeems the flesh. Y'all, I would have shouted right there. So what's wrong with y'all tonight? Are y'all getting some of this? This is what's happening right now as you and I are living. We're the generation that the speaking's going to be released. Now, some are not going to hear it, but you had better. Amen? Now, Abraham received the covenant of circumcision, that is, the cutting away of the dead flesh, which was the very thing that caused the high priest to become unclean, dead flesh. Well, Abraham had a covenant long before the priesthood was established, and the purpose of Abraham's covenant was to teach him how to deal with the dead flesh. Well, most of us just embrace it and say, come on in, baby, you know. Hey, baby, I'm the telephone man. That's the way most of us, yeah, you've heard it, all of us. We're in the season of the counting of the Emor. You know what the season, that 50-day period is for? Telling you how to trim the flesh, how to get rid of the flesh. Guess what? You're never going to have the wedding contract read to you until the flesh is dealt with. And right at the end of that 50 days, when it seems like you've done everything, man, he has been trimming and pruning and cutting away. Now he tells you you need a bath and change of clothes. That's what he tells them right there at Mount Sinai. And I'm thinking, all of this before we're able to hear the speak. Well, the last Torah portion was Kedoshim, and that means sanctified, set apart, holy ones. You'll never be set apart or sanctified if you can't hear him. And this is the message that he's trying to get across to us in this Torah portion. Let's look a little bit further. It says that Kedar Leomer is from the place called Elam. Strong's number 5867, Olam, meaning eternity. The root of that word means to hide something and conceal it, to make someone blind in the process. Did you hear me? Did you know that the priest was not to come in contact with one who was blind? Did you know a person that's blind is unfit as a sacrifice? An animal that's blind was unfit as a sacrifice? Did you know that the word for Hebrew, Ever, and the word for blind, Ever, are the same, just the vowel points changed? So if you're not real careful, you could go from being one who's just crossed over to be one who's blind. Boom, that's exactly right. And as soon as that happens, you're unfit for a sacrifice. And then we want to quote Romans chapter 12. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the tender mercies of Yah, that you offer yourself living sacrifices. If I'm blind and deaf, guess what? Spiritually, I'm unfit. That's what he tells us. The sages teach us, since he was the son of this person called Elam, Elam was the son of Shem. And of course, Shem would have been the priestly lineage that had been handed down from Adam forward. Yet something evidently defiled him, just like it did in Leviticus 21:1b. There shall none be defiled for the dead among his people. And if he is defiled by the dead, he's profaned. Something profaned this individual named Kedar Leomer. Well, that doesn't make sense until you continue to read it. See, this is deep stuff. You're not going to get it just by flippantly reading it. Can y'all hold on for a little while? It mentions another king. This king's name was Tidal or Tidal, Strong's number 8413, and of course it's translated as great son, reverence, fear. But it's ultimately from the root of the word 1763. That word is dahal, and it means to slink or crawl away, to back away in fear. Tells you about this man's constitution and character. It's closely related to 21:19, the word zahal, which is used and translated as creepers from the dust. In other words, serpents. So this man's name is telling you basically that he feared the serpent seed and he slunk away in their presence. Oh, don't talk like that. That devil makes me mad. Next, it talks about the king called Amraphel. His name is translated as a sayer of darkness or fall of the sayer, but let's look at it. Remember, I just told you, Leviticus 21:18 tells us that the priest should not approach one who's blind. And that word means one who walks in darkness. Well, this individual was a sayer of darkness. See, this Kedar Leomer was the leader of these individuals. One walked in darkness, the other one slunk away from the serpent's seed. Are you following me? A blind one who's walking in darkness is one who's in opposition to Torah. There's no middle ground. Did you know that that's what happened to Samson? How many of you remember Samson? You know what happened to him? Because he was in his flesh, what happened? His eyes were put out. He was made physically blind, but he began to spiritually see. I shared last week, an individual who's blind physically and deaf physically can still hear the word of Yah and see Him. If you're spiritually blind and spiritually deaf, you can do neither. This is important. Let's look at the word Raphael. The word in Hebrew is a word for people. The word Rapha means to heal, to restore, to seek the favor or a cure. And of course, the word El means the mighty one, the mighty hero. And his name basically is telling us that the people are healed and restored by the mighty one. Now, he's a counterfeit, just like Kedar Laomer. And I've got news for you. The anti-Messiah is going to appear just like this Kedar Laomer in the last days with lying signs and wonders. And he will be speaking. The sages teach us that this same one, this mighty one that they're talking about here was Nimrod, who built the Tower of Babel. The word for mighty is translated as Gibor, and of course it means giant, chief, or champion. And it says that Nimrod was a mighty hunter before Yahweh. But if you go back and look in the Hebrew language, it's talking about being a hunter of men. And if you really dig it down in the Hebrew language and break it apart, it literally is inferring cannibalism. And if you remember when the children of Israel went into the land of Canaan and they talked about the giant races, and it talked about how the people would eat up the land, those giant offsprings were cannibals. Well, just either take my word for it or research it. I don't have time to go into it this evening. This king was also from Shinar, the land of Sodom and Gomorrah. And again, I've got to note the root. It's the same as the word in today's Torah portion, Emor. Now, I want you to notice something. We're talking about the word of Yah. Psalm 119, 130. How many of you know that the 119th Psalm is divided into 22 stanzas? One stanza or chorus for every Hebrew letter, right? Well, Psalm 119, 130 says, the entrance of your word brings light. That happens to fall under the stanza associated with the Hebrew letter Pei, which indicates the mouth, the word spoken. It's the speaking that brings light. Well, Psalm 119, 105 says that your word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. That's underneath the stanza of the Hebrew letter Nun. Nun and Pei together form the Hebrew word Naph. Naph is the word in Hebrew that means to blow the breath into the nostrils, like Yah blowed his breath into the mouth of the Adam. And when Yah speaks, listen to me, when you hear this title, Emor, speaking, it's inferring that Yah is blowing the breath of the living word into your nostrils. And if you refuse that, the entire Torah portion is dealing with it. If you refuse that, what you've done, you've just come in contact with another breath that's being blown, another seed that's being planted. And we understand there's no middle ground. It's either the word of Yahweh, the seed of Yah, or the seed of the serpent and his breath blowing. Now you know why it tickles when he blows them sweet nothings in your ear. Give me just a few minutes and we'll finish. Can you cut it off? Let me get a drink of water. Y'all going to be all right? Thank you for joining us tonight as we finish this teaching on Emor, the speaking. And that's exactly what Father's doing. He's speaking to us. Yeshua said, he that hath an ear to hear, let him hear what the Spirit is saying to us, the ecclesia, the church, the called out bunch, the assembly, the bride. I have to hear. Now, it tells you these individuals were from that place called Gomorrah. Let's look at the root of it. The root of it is Amorah. You notice that AH suffix. It's the feminine suffix added to it. to the word Emor, which means speak. If you add that feminine